It is the final week of Season 1 in MLB The Show 23, which means I have final tier lists at every position that I want to run down. Obviously, we did some videos along the way of Season 1 going through my favorite options, but since we're at the end, I want to run down these tier lists very quickly. So if you are watching this when Season 2 begins, hopefully you can make the decision of which Season 1 card should I keep using. Let's hop on into our tier lists. This video is going to be less about talking about the cards in the list. I did those in those individual videos whenever it was necessary. Since we're at the end, I wanted to do 95 plus cards, and I think we'll be doing this with the tier list here on out, since most people are going to be using these cards on a Hall of Fame World Series push. In terms of catcher, we do want a mix of defense since fielding matters, so all of the guys really in the B tier and above bring enough defense and good enough hitting for catcher. But catcher's definitely weak on the offensive side. You could argue that 95 Carlos Santana is the best hitter of this entire bunch. Since there aren't that many options, you kind of got to weigh the pros and cons of running these catchers, and I think the guys in the S tier bring the most well-rounded side of the game. Like Alvarez has power, Posada's a nice switch hitter, he's sacrificing clutch, but a good card. And then JT Realmuto is very, very well-rounded, but not really incredible at anything. But I've been running Craig Biggio. I use Santana a bit, and this card's a great hitter, but stinky fielder. Condo's a legend, and Salvi Perez is pretty fun. But I think Realmuto is going to be the guy for many people. Now we have first base. From the F to the B tier, these are all solid options, but I think the options people are really going to be using on a Hall of Fame World Series push is going to be C and B tiers and above, of course. And yeah, at first base, I want really good hitting. This hitter needs to be a heart of the order level hitter for me. And just these guys down here don't do it enough. But if you're starting off the game or you just have a couple favorites, they're definitely going to be very solid options heading into Season 2 here. But since we're going to be getting a lot of 97 plus cards again, I don't know how this is going to shape out in the long run. But now for A and S tier, the options that I think most people are going to want to use, these guys have the most well-rounded hitting. You're going to sacrifice a little bit of defense. Yeah, they might not make many scoops over at first base with lower fielding, but the amount of hitting you're going to get out of these guys is actually worth it. I think Brent Rooker is really fun, but his defense is going to stink. He's actually not that far off from, say, like Mark McGwire. I think Munetaka Murakami and Babe Ruth and Chris Bryant, Lou Gehrig are all really fun options that I think a lot of people will like. If you are using any 99 overalls, or you want to go for someone a little different, go for Ryan Howard and Willie McCovey. But Lou Gehrig's my guy. Now we have second base, and second base and shortstop aren't that far off for me. I want defense and speed along with good enough hitting. This hitter probably isn't going to be a power hitter, but someone with some speed to hit first. It brings enough defense so I could turn double plays and just get outs. When you have the bad fielders, I noticed the bad fielding a good bit, so I definitely started to prioritize it a bit more here in the middle infield. So in these lower tiers, I think you'll start to see options you like in the B and above tier. I can honestly really make a case for Jeremy Pena being in that A tier, but nonetheless, at least the B tier and above are going to be your better second base options with good enough hitting, good enough defense, maybe some solid speed, where you could use them in this purpose. But in the A and S tier, I think the guy is definitely going to be Trey Turner or Francisco Lindor. One of these two are the options to probably keep using past Season 1, especially if you really like them. I love Trey Turner. A lot of people like Francisco Lindor. You have another shortstop you like, play him over at second base. Ellie De La Cruz, I think, is great for the switch hitting 5 tools that he brings. He's actually a very underrated shortstop, in my opinion, that I don't really see used much against me. I think all of these guys in the A and S tier are pretty good options over at second. No matter the option, you're going to find an option in that B or C tier and above that you tend to really like and probably keep on using them into Season 2, I think. Shortstop, I like to say, is the same thing, ideally better defense, and the arm strength starts to matter more because you're making a lot of plays in the hole. Definitely looking for 5-tool type players with good enough defense, good hitting. So all of these guys in these lower tiers are some secondary guys that maybe don't bring enough of the hitting, maybe they don't bring enough of the defense, whatever it is. B tier and above, I think, are going to be most of your shortstop options at this point. But the thing with shortstop is the top end of the tier list is way more stacked. You have Chipper and Jeter and Tatis who can all play shortstop who are going to be very good options. My guy has been Derek Jeter. I got him. He is not left shortstop. I don't plan on taking him out anytime soon. Love his swing. But again, all of the guys in the B, A, and S tier are going to get the job done over there. You might have a preference in one of these players who you just happen to do better with, but I just think since there are so many good options like Tatis, Trey, Jeter, and Chipper, maybe you want to get that better hitter and throw him at shortstop Third base, I like to treat it as a second first base, but where defense matters a bit more. Yes, scooping plays matters at first, but at third base, if you have a third baseman who bobbles plays, has really slow reaction, and doesn't have great arm strength, so many more runners are going to be given up than expected. So if you're going to be using someone like that at third, they better be an incredible hitter. So in this D and F tier, some of these guys just don't have great defense. They don't have enough hitting over at third base. In the C and B tiers over at third base, there's some very fun options you could use here, like Brett Beatty, Rafael Devers, who are very solid hitters and bring enough defense to make that worth it. But in those two cases, maybe you face a lefty, you're going to want a pinch hitter option to pair with them. You know, Joey Meneses is a good hitter, but sucks defensively. So there's trade-offs to using these guys in the B and C tier, but you like their swings, you need a position to get them in, I think you're fine to use them still. But again, almost like shortstop, there's so many good third base options that A and S tier make this position really stacked. And I think many people are going to use a primary third baseman here, like Chipper. All these guys in the S tier are going to be great hitters and bring enough defense to the table. I think Trey Turner slides into the S because of his speed. The defense does kind of stink, but he's at least a better hitter than all of the other shortstop secondary options. So that trade-off is worth it over at third base for me. But in general, in this S tier, you're going to find some incredible hitters with good enough defense. I mean, if Gold Fielding is going to be the worst you're throwing out at third, that's perfectly fine with me. Now we go to the outfield, and there are obviously a lot of cards in the outfield. The thing with outfielders is I need contact, power, speed, defense. Ideally, that's the case most prominently in center field because that player needs to make the most plays. But having slow or bad defensive fielders are going to be terrible. It's going to hurt you in the outfield. You're going to have a lot of extra base hits, and nobody wants that. So in our F and D tier, a lot of these outfielders might have defense but not enough hitting, or vice versa. Solid hitting, but just stinky defense. The hitting they are bringing to the table isn't enough to make that risk worth it. So in the C and B tier, you see a little bit more of an upgrade. Some of the 97 charisma cards that were favorites like Cedric, Yelich, Stanton are good options in the outfield. And most of the team affinity guys are in this range. I think the hitting is good on those cards, but the defense is a trade-off for guys like Soto and Yelich and Eloy and Stanton. And on the other hand, you have guys like Mullins and McNeil who are going to be pretty solid hitters and brings better defense, but not enough in comparison to the guys above. So very fun option if you like their cards still. They're going to be very viable to use, especially heading into season 2. We're going to be seeing 97 cards likely in team affinity. Scrolling up to our top tier, I'm looking for 5-tool players who have contact, power, speed, and defense, like Tatis and Julio and Griffey and Trout. And they have their slight pros and cons, like Mike Trout has slightly lower reaction. Kyle Tucker is very good hitting wise, but a little slower. Griffey lacks a little bit on the vision. Julio Rodriguez lacks a little bit on the contact and power, but still very good. All of these cards in this S tier have enough on the hitting. And some of the guys in the A tier are going to be very viable like these S tier guys. Like I love 97 Acuna, my favorite pick from that team affinity drop other than 97 Stanton. And his defense is enough with the speed he brings. And I think in all of the outfielders in this case, they're good hitters with enough defense like Chris Bryant, Jim Edmonds, Greg Vaughn. Or on the other hand, you have guys who are very good defenders with slightly weaker hitting, but someone like Corbin Carroll is going to be an elite fielder. And same with Ricky Henderson. And then on the other hand, you have the solid hitters like Ohtani and Ralph Kiner and Vlad Sr., where their hitting they're bringing is actually worth using on the team somehow, but you're going to be sacrificing defensively. But so if you're not using the DH, throwing him in the outfield is somewhat tolerable. The only player that's that level of hitter that's worth using the outfielder, no doubt, is Babe Ruth. 125 everything is worth that sacrifice if you hit well with them. I think the outfield to go to is someone in center field like Griffey, Julio, maybe even Tatis. And it's someone in the corner outfield like a Babe Ruth if you want to get some hitting, or someone who's a little bit more defensively sided. Now for starting pitching. This is a little tougher because I like my sinker, cutter, control type pitchers in many cases. Maybe people need outlier, maybe people need a certain level of attribute. It's tough to make a call on pitchers that work the best for everyone. But most of the pitchers who are going to be the easiest to pitch with are going to be in that B and above tier. You probably have your rotation extending down to the D tier if you haven't been playing as much, or just found those 5 5 options that you've liked. Some of the guys in these lower tiers are just a bit readable, especially in the D and F tier. Guys like Taijuan Walker, Paul Blackburn, Justin Steele are just a little bit too easy to read, even though they have a somewhat favorable pitch mix. And then you have some guys with very generic pitch mixes that are tough to pitch with, like Catfish Hunter and Christian Javier. So pitchers like them could be a little tougher to pitch with. But I think you'll be seeing C and above pitchers for most people by the time we get to season 2 here. And I could see in some cases some of these pitchers staying in rotations if you happen to really like them. But in the B and above tiers, I think these are going to be the pitchers you still keep in your rotation if you really like them. Maybe you want to target them for that ace level pitcher, 99 overall, especially if you haven't gotten someone like a Pedro Martinez yet. So you're going to find some sort of purpose for these guys in the B tier. A lot of these guys are pretty equally viable. You just have to find a combination that you like the most. Like some people like Dustin May, some people like Dontrell Willis, some people like me like Brandon Webb. It comes down to the type of pitcher that you like, but this tier all have enough attributes and a good enough pitch mix to make that worth running in your rotation. I think the A and S tier pitchers are the top tier pitchers that I've heard a lot of really good feedback on. But the 3 pitchers I've heard nearly universally liked, I do have to keep in mind, there's a shot that you are going to struggle with someone in the S tier. The velocity and the overall pitch mix they bring are good enough that most people can pitch effective with them. But again, with starting pitchers, look for a type of pitcher you like. Maybe you like control, maybe you like velocity, maybe there's a combination of pitches that you tunnel and pitch effectively with. But I bet we're going to get a lot of really fun ones in season 2. And finally, the relief pitchers. This list has cards below 95 overall, but there just aren't enough options to give 8 spots in the bullpen, or however many it is. You're going to likely use a couple players in the F, D, and C tier in the back end of your bullpen. And I really think in many cases, these guys are going to be very, very good for that back end of the bullpen. It comes down to preference and pitch mix. I like Andrew Chafin a lot. He's still in my bullpen right now. I'll take him out when other good lefties come out, but I think a lot of these guys fall into the same boat. Maybe the attributes are slightly weaker. Maybe they have 1 or 2 very effective pitches, but the overall pitch mix isn't there to be incredible. But we slide up to the B, A, and S tier. These are going to be your actual closers you probably keep in the season 2. Some people like Tyler Matzik. Some people want to use Jose Alvarado. I know I said in the previous tier list that Devin Williams, Eric Gagne, and Josh Hader are probably the best 3. I think they're the most effective, but some people do struggle pitching with them with their little pitch mix, especially with Devin Williams. I do got to keep that in mind. You probably aren't going to use them more than an inning. So you're probably going to find someone in that S, A, and B tier that's going to be your go-to closer. I was honestly tempted to even put Ohtani up there, but they're going to be able to take down most of the best hitters in the game on Hall of Fame. And if you want to see my final lineup that I'm running before season 2 ends, I've done a lot of shifting. I focused on selling players so I can get collections done. Thus, I have Chipper, Babe, and Pedro. I did have guys in the team like Ken Griffey Jr., JT Realmuto, cards I used for a bit and had fun with, but aren't going to be used heading into season 2 for me because I'll be focusing on that newer content, maybe picking them up a little later if they start to get cheaper. And then these are the pitchers that I have remaining. Again, these 3 over here are the ones I actually used a bit. I did have other pitchers in these rotation spots, just like Gallen and Bumgarner. And yeah, this is what a God Squad looks like by the time season 1 ends. And I could picture a lot of the 99 staying, but I'm also planning to try a bunch of the 97s that we're going to be getting here in season 2. So make sure you like this video if you enjoyed these tier lists, and feel free to watch the other videos I made if you want to see some more elaborating. We'll be starting with season 2 here soon. And yeah, you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you all again on next one.